It is championship week here in the Running with the Herd podcast, powered up by Herd Nation, part of the Rivals Network, sponsored by Mike Wynn Insurance Agency. Like I said before, it is championship week, and it is U of L, Louisiana versus Marshall at Cajun Field, December 7th, 7:30 p.m. And here to talk a little bit about that matchup from the Louisiana side of things is Kevin Foote from theadvocate.com. Kevin, good to talk to you again.
Yes, sir. It's we've been kind of waiting. Cajuns thought they were cruising, then they had the little slip up against South Alabama, but they were able to win the last two and get in. And then it was, who were they going to be playing? And I got home from covering the game the other night and saw the Marshall game. That was a crazy one.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, when it was 17-0, Kevin, I will admit I wasn't very hopeful, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Ever since that Georgia Southern game, they haven't been out of it. They've won now 6 straight games, and they're looking to win a 7th, and it's a very important one. Obviously, it is Marshall's first appearance in the Sun Belt Championship game. Louisiana had a Sun Belt Championship in 2021. These two teams played each other in 2021 in the New Orleans Bowl. We had spoken before that time, but talk to me a little bit about this year's edition of the Cajuns. You talked a little bit about it. They had been rolling until the slip up against South Alabama, like you mentioned, but it seems like Coach DeSormo's team is, doing well, and they've played their brand of football. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this team is actually very similar to the 2021 team, with the exception is, Levi Lewis never seemed to get hurt. He played every game the whole time he was here. And, Ben Woolridge was doing a lot of the things that Levi was doing and the offense was doing in 2021. Until the South Alabama game, the Cajuns they were the only team in the country that hadn't lost a fumble all year. They had very few interceptions. So the key was not turning over the football and forcing turnovers. And it's simple, but it's not always that easy to do. And that 2021 team was great at creating turnovers, doing just good enough against the run, and don't turn over the ball. And that was the formula. And the Cajuns had done that. About a month ago, they were pretty healthy also. And about a month ago, they got really banged up in the secondary. Their offensive line had a few tweaks, and then Woolridge got hurt in that game, and then running back got hurt, and another running back got hurt. So the injury started to pile up a little bit, and in South Alabama did a great job of taking advantage of that. Their first 3 drives in that game, they scored touchdowns, and it was like, whoa, this is going to be a blowout. They did very little after that once the Cajuns made some adjustments with some new starters in the secondary, but and then Ben got hurt. Chandler came in, and they, cut it to 2 and went for 2 and didn't make it. But it was, but again, the formula for this team is most of the year is run the football, don't turn it over, control the clock, and they've done a great job of that. Since the end of the first quarter of that South Alabama game, the passing game has kind of been more important. Chandler Fields is more of a natural, got a stronger arm, kind of more of the gunslinger type of the two. Ben was like having this incredible, he's more of a game manager. He can throw it, but he can run it, and he's great at reading when to check in and out of plays and all that stuff that Levi did back in 2021. So right now we're kind of waiting to see. They're going to lean more of the pass or the run against Marshall. That'll be interesting because Marshall obviously has a great pass rush and probably be the best one the Cajuns have faced all year. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup plays out.
Yeah, definitely. And Chandler Fields, like you said, a lot of experience, coming into Louisiana. And when you have a guy like Ben go down, it's definitely a great thing to have a backup with the kind of experience that Chandler has.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't believe there's too many more in the country. You're talking about both of them are redshirt seniors. They're still playing on the COVID extra year because they both were around that long. And so very few teams, I would think, have a redshirt senior to play backup in this era of transfer portal and all. And he thought that I think he thought last year was going to be his last year. And then when Zion Chris transferred to Houston, and he said, why not come back? Because he finished the season pretty strong last year after Ben was out for the year. And no one knew exactly when Ben was going to be healthy again. And Ben always seems to come back quicker than you think he's going to come back. He's done that twice already from major. And yeah, it's really paid off, because the next quarterback is a true freshman who was playing high school football last year at this time. And so
right.
that's their next option. So I'm sure they're hoping that Chandler stays healthy.
Yeah, certainly. And on the Marshall side of things, from an outsider's perspective, Kevin, when you've seen this Thundering Herd team, they've obviously had a pretty good run of success in the Sun Belt. I mean, obviously with the inexplicable, unbelievable, crazy 1-point loss to Georgia Southern in October, they rang off 6 straight wins. None more impressive than that James Madison comeback from 17 down on the road, everything else. From an outsider's perspective, what do you see when you look at this Thundering Herd football team?
Well, I see an athletic quarterback, which is always a problem. I mean, anytime you're facing a quarterback who can throw and run, and the Cajuns have done that, but I don't know, he just seems like a better runner than most of the dual threat quarterbacks that the Cajuns have played. And so that's scary. They've got receivers that can make plays, and, he can certainly hurt them with their legs. But, the ability to get after the quarterback is the scariest thing to me, like I mentioned earlier, because one thing that Chandler doesn't have that Ben has some height. Ben was more like 6'2", 6'3", and Chandler's 5'10". So rushing the quarterback and getting him out of his rhythm is something that has happened at times over his career here. And obviously Marshall has the ability to do that. So many people, I don't think just in Lafayette, kind of had this idea midway through the season or so that James Madison's really the best team, and they just kept losing. And then when they lost to ULM, then they lost again, and then they lost again. I'm like, well, I don't know if they're the best team. This Marshall team keeps playing pretty steady here. And then the other night, even at 17-0, I'm like, okay, if James Madison scores next, then they're going to win. But if coming out of the half, if Marshall scores and they only got a field goal, but when they got that field goal and then I think it was a 3-and-out right after that, I'm like, this game is not over.
Right. I was feeling the exact same way. I was feeling the exact same way. And when they got the ball, they held a sustained drive. Braylon Braxton found Toby Payne in the back of the end zone, 16-yard touchdown pass. It was a 17-10 game at the time. And I told myself, I'm like, okay, we're not out of this.
Yeah, no question. They both did it. And, I guess it's kind of strange because the Cajuns didn't play Marshall this year. Now, they do have the experience of playing them in that bowl game, like you're saying. Not that it's the same teams or anything. And they did play him. It was actually Ben Woolridge's coming out party. He had
first game
as a starter playing that in Marshall 2 years ago. Coach Dez's first year, I was on that trip, and that was a big moment for him. And even Lance Lejeune, I think, played a little Wildcat in that game, and he's turned out to be a tremendous receiver this year for the Cajuns. So I guess the programs know a little bit about each other because they played, but it is a little unique. Every year the Cajuns played App in the finals, they had played them in the regular season, and so there was more to go on. There's a little bit more mystery around this matchup.
Yeah, certainly. And even from the 2021 New Orleans Bowl to today, Kevin, I mean, obviously that was Coach Huff's first team that he had at Marshall, and with the age of the transfer portal and everything else, you don't know what team you're getting from year to year. I mean, obviously Coach Dez and the Cajuns are probably looking at Marshall saying, this is not the same team we played 2 years ago. This is not the same team from 2021. This is probably a more well-balanced, more formidable opponent. Not to say that they weren't a formidable opponent in the other two meetings, but they're probably looking at it on film, and they're probably looking at it saying, you know what, this is not the same group.
No, I know it's very different. Now, one thing the Cajuns have done is they've really done a nice job of being able to keep it. They've been fortunate. You know, they've lost some players, but not a lot of players. And so their depth charts have remained, fairly steady compared to most of the country. And I think that's a big reason why they were able to make a big step forward this year.
Yeah, and to your point there about that, what is it about that Cajun culture? What is it about Coach Dez's leadership, his style of coaching, everything else that kind of lends it to believe like, hey, I could stick around with this program and I could help continue to build upon some of the good teams of the past? What is it about that culture that has guys staying, in your opinion?
I think he's just genuine because he's from here. He's from New Iberia, just down the road. He played here. He coached here. And I think when athletes come, a coach can say, I'm staying, or, seem genuine. But everything, I think it's easy to believe that he's genuine and how much he cares about the program, because he literally lives and breathes the program. And he takes everything personally about the program and the progress of the program. And it's family, but it's bigger than just that family word. It's like, he's like tied at the hip with the program and done so much as a player and coach and been through so much that I think he just has a genuineness about him that a lot of coaches can't have, because most coaches aren't coaching at the school that they played at and they coached at, for their whole careers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, obviously, to be a native of the Pelican State and to, have so much history with the program. I mean, obviously he's seen some success as a coach. There were some lean years, before he took over the head job, for the program. So, I mean, for him to see the program where it is now is probably a real benefit to him. When you look at this matchup on December 7th, Saturday, Kevin, what do you think are the three main keys to victory and hoisting a title for either team? It could be special teams, it could be turnovers, it could be anything.
Well, I think for the Cajuns, I think they're going to need to run the ball a little better than they've been running it. Now, South Alabama's run defense was really good, among the best in the conference, and Troy's was pretty good as well. And so those became more like where they were able to throw the ball, and that fit right into what Chandler could do. It's hard to protect the quarterback, especially against a guy as good as Green is, if you can't run the ball. And so,
right.
They ran the ball. The ULM got really good pressure on them in the first half last week's, particularly the first quarter in last week's game. And the offense was kind of struggling. They didn't do a whole lot in the first half. The second half, they leaned on the run. It worked. They ended up rushing for 224 yards and winning the game by 2 touchdowns. If they go back to not running the ball well, like they have most of the last couple of weeks, then I think trouble pass protecting. So I think running the ball is going to be critical. For the Cajuns, I do think they're going to need to get some critical turnovers because, again, anytime you have a quarterback that can run, it's going to be hard to stop him. And Marshall can also run the ball with other players too, not just a quarterback. And the running game, defending the run has been a bit of an issue for the Cajuns. Now, the good thing is their secondary seems to be healthier than it's been for the last 3 or 4 weeks, so they probably are a little bit better off in terms of their pass defense than they've been. But I'd still be worried from a Cajun perspective about their ability to defend the run. So I think it's going to be critical that they can get a few turnovers and not lose that battle. Now, I don't know enough about Marshall's specialty. I know their kicker is very good. The Cajuns' kicker is outstanding. So this is going to be a really good matchup of kickers. The other thing that the Cajuns have done really well, especially of late, is return kickoffs very well. Zylan Perry was hurt, missed about a game and a half. And when he came back as a running back, it was great that he did that last week because he rushed for a career high 150 yards. They took the kickoff return duty off of him just to kind of give him a little break while he's coming back. Rob Williams, a wide receiver, filled in, and he's done fabulous returning kickoffs, including one 90-something, 96 yards for a touchdown against Troy 2 games ago. So kickoff coverage could be in special teams play could be an issue in this game, depending on how Marshall handles that.
Yeah, for sure. And on the Marshall side of things, as far as the return game, Ian Foster has been averaging 33.6 yards a return throughout this season. He's almost broken a couple of long returns. So, I mean, the special teams game could come into play when you talk about this game. I mean, also, Reese Veerhoff seems to be finding his stride as a kicker as of late. And they had that fake field goal against James Madison that nobody saw coming. And
yes,
that was something.
That was, really, man, I was like, wow. It took a little guts to do it, but they pulled it off tremendously. Yes.
Yeah, that was definitely a gutsy call. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. It should be an excellent game between two very evenly matched teams. A whole lot different from the New Orleans Bowl in 2021 and different from the game that they played in Huntington a couple years ago. Kevin, thanks a lot. We look forward to the game, and should be a good one.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. And you going to make it down here or what?
I am not going to make it down here this year. I have some other obligations, but I will be watching it with a whole lot of intent. So
I understand. All right. Well, you have a great holiday. Merry Christmas.
You too. Same to you, man.
All right.